Hello, dear friends. It is Dr. Sarah. Thank you for joining me today on this very important topic. We're going to talk about mental health, and I'm going to highlight the concept of psychoaromatherapy, in which essential oils can help us achieve better emotional balance and brain health. So, this is important because many people today are feeling the strain and stress of living in our current environment. There's been evidence from a compilation of data that shows that we're in a mental health crisis, and it's especially impacting our youth. Current statistics show that within 30 days, 1 in 3 US high school students have reported that their mental health was not good a majority of the time. Furthermore, 1 in 5 adults have suffered from depression. And the numbers continue to rise. So it's becoming evident that our current approach to mental health care is not that great. And I believe what it's sorely lacking is supportive mind body practices. These won't replace conventional care, but they offer a holistic perspective and a personalized approach that is missing in mainstream medicine. So what I want to do in this video blog is share with you how essential oils can assist with this problem that we're facing today in America and why they should be considered an important addition to achieving better brain health for our nation. So we're going to go over the current state of mental health, dive a little bit deeper into the numbers, how essential oils specifically can aid in brain health and emotional balance. We're going to talk about that big word, psychoaromatherapy, which is basically implying that essential oils can help with psychiatric disorders. And how I'm going to go about that is I'm going to feature some highlights from one of my favorite Essential Oil Revolution podcast episodes with world-renowned clinical aromatherapist Jade Schutz. And then finally, I'm going to briefly list 5 of my favorite essential oils to soothe the mind and the body. Now, as always, all the additional references, resources, and links to the studies can be found in this accompanying blog. So let's get started. First of all, if we look at our current mental health state, the statistics from Mental Health America shows that nearly 60 million adults, or 23 about percent, have experienced a mental health illness in the past year. 13 million adults that have reported thoughts of suicide as well. The number of individuals who died by suicide in 2022 was the highest recorded in US history. And this was after it slightly decreased in 2019 and 2020. Now, concerningly, the nation's youth continues to present cause for a lot of concern. But more specifically, 1 in 5 young people from ages 12 to 17 experienced at least one major depressive episode in the past year, and more than half of them did not receive any mental health treatment. And more than 3.4 million youth, which is about 13%, had serious thoughts of suicide. So this is very alarming. And the pandemic did contribute to the rise in mental health disorders, but the numbers were accelerating even prior to that. So there is evidence that our current methods of treating the brain are not effective, and there's lack of access to successful solutions. If we don't look at all of the different aspects of health, and this means incorporating an integrative and whole person approach, we're only band-aiding the situation with diagnostic codes and offering ineffective or incomplete treatments. And we're only addressing the symptoms. We're trying to manipulate maybe the brain biochemistry versus looking into the actual causes of why the brain is in alarm. And this is a psychological as well as a biological issue. And so we need to do more. And this is why I believe in the additional support of mind-body practices along with conventional psychiatric care, because this would help address some of the root cause of the brain's biochemical imbalances, metabolic dysfunction, and the physiological, the psychological, and the functional issues regarding what's going on in the brain. If you listen to some of my past videos, you will probably understand this in a little bit more detail. And you can find those on my channel. But basically, what I did was list all of the many factors related to brain health. And we need to consider them all for a comprehensive approach that provides true solutions. We also need ways to tame our thoughts and educate ourselves on how to best support our mind's incessant chatter because people are worried about what's going on in the world today. It's compiled on top of all of their everyday life stressors. So one of my favorite ways to do this, will not be surprising if you followed this channel for a while, is to use essential oils. And I love essential oils because they're accessible. Everybody has ability to inhale and smell, and they're pretty easy to use, and they're safe and effective when used appropriately and mindfully. So I want to share with you how essential oils can aid brain health and balance emotional health now that we know that we need more tools in our toolkit to support our mental health in America. So I wrote an article in Townsend Letter called Mind Body Applications of Essential Oils, a case study with anxiety. And I reviewed why essential oils are unique, they're gentle, and yet at the same time potent for balancing brain health. So there is a lot of animal and in vitro studies, so petri dish studies, along with more accumulating human trials, which have shown that essential oils simultaneously modulate our emotions while they're also influencing our brainwave patterns, our neurochemistry, our physiology, and our biochemistry. And this is an amazing feat that is often not seen with conventionally based applications, which are usually just addressing the biochemical aspect. They have multifaceted properties, essential oils do, and they bridge the link between the mind and the body. So they're synergistic, and they can actually influence one's mindset, their mood, and biology at the same time. Studies have shown that essential oils can modulate emotional patterns, actually promote mindfulness. They can ground us to be in the present better, and they can enhance outcomes by removing the psychological blocks to healing. Because if your body's impacted, so is your brain. Everything's connected. So essential oils can also enhance the physical improvement by decreasing stress on the body and calming the brain down. So I have found them to be extremely helpful in assisting my clients break through fears, struggles, setbacks, just regular everyday hassles and calming the brain, but also in integrative protocols for mental health and physical health. So they have this powerful biochemical and physical prowess, but they are probably most well known for how they impact stress and relaxation, which is not a small feat in of itself. Now, they can do this in 5 very distinct ways. And I'm going to go through those 5 ways right now because it also demonstrates how they're such good regulators of our biology and our psychology. So one of the ways they do that is by regulating our hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And this is something that influences our hormonal output, basically the communication between these different organ systems and stress. And they do this by directly influencing the hormone cortisol, which is our stress hormone. They actually interact with hormone receptors themselves, the essential oils. They provide an anti-inflammatory effect, which helps prevent neuronal damage, and they modulate neurotransmitters that interact with the actual HPA axis. So I'll get into that in a little bit later. They also buffer stress at the level of perception. So they have these biological properties that work in harmony to rebalance the nervous system and the hormonal system, but they also instantly shift the emotional brain and our perception because smell directly goes to the emotional brain. So we can literally halt additional continued biochemical insults that could occur downstream from excess stress by inhaling essential oils. Now, if we look at how they balance hormones, essential oils help achieve optimal hormone levels through many different ways, right? One of this is the indirect ways by modulating stress. But this also impacts brain function and emotional balance, and it's partly due through the influence of these companion neurotransmitters with different hormones. So, for example, estrogen will impact serotonin, progesterone will impact GABA, thyroid has some impact on dopamine, etc. And we talked about when they regulate the HP axis, how they also lower cortisol. There's been specific essential oils that have been shown to modulate cortisol. Lavender and bergamot tend to be two of my favorite. They can also stimulate the vagus nerve. So this is the parasympathetic or rest or digest part of the nervous system that the vagus nerve mostly has a function for. They stimulate that part of the nervous system. As a side note, the vagus nerve also does have some sympathetic activity, but we're talking here how they stimulate the parasympathetic branch, which is a majority of what it regulates. And this can help modulate our physiology, our psychology and biochemistry, our rest and digest system. It turns that part more on so people can feel more safe to heal and rejuvenate and not be in this constant state of overwhelm. Three of my favorites are lavender and bergamot again, as well as ylang-ylang essential oil. And there's a blend that I use in my clinical practice called parasympathetic blend, and I'll put a link in the video description for that one as well. That is also a great vagus nerve modulator. Now that we know how essential oils support the stress response through the HPA axis, buffering stress at the level of perception, balancing hormones, lowering cortisol, stimulating the vagus nerve, and that we need additional tools to help us support with our psychiatric and mental health crisis in America, let's look at this concept of psychoaromatherapy. So previously I talked about how I had the distinct pleasure of interviewing Jade Schutz, and she is world renowned and one of the foremost and most respected authorities in aromatherapy. She's sought after as a practitioner, a researcher, an international educator. She has her own school of aromatic studies. She's super passionate about aromatics. She enlightened us on how essential oils can help fill the gaps that are evident in mental health care during this episode, and specific ways that aromatics benefit our mood, our emotional balance, and our brain health. Jade is very, as I stated, passionate. She believes the sense of smell is one of the most powerful senses for healing the mind, body, and psyche. I agree. And it's especially impactful during this upheaval and time of change. Again, she is very balanced and very sought after because she's so progressive, holistic, and inspiring. And this episode is probably, I love them all, but it's probably one that is the most dearest to my heart because it combines my two passions of essential oils and integrative mental health. And also, I'm a big fan of Jade Schutz, and it was so nice to have somebody that I so much respect and who is equally as zealous about this topic to talk to about these synergizing subjects. So just a little brief overview of what we talked about, and I will put the link in the video description in the accompanying article so you can go ahead and listen in on that, because I know you, if this is at all something you or your loved ones are struggling with, and mostly everybody either is or knows someone that is, I believe you will want to listen to this episode. Some of the things we highlighted is why we need to customize interventions versus just treat a diagnosis, some ways and holistic ways essential oils can benefit mental health. So she actually talked about this eidetic effect and the psychological expectancy, memory-based association, and then some of the pharmacological mechanisms we talked about. So she also went into the psychology basically of this as well. She talked about the importance of using integrative support along with conventional and clinical aromatherapy, that essential oils, of course, don't replace conventional care, but they can definitely help it be more effective. She talked about specific oils we could use, their mechanisms, guidelines, how we should be diffusing essential oils for the mood benefits. We touched upon the vagus nerve. We touched upon trauma and changes in the brain and how essential oils can impact that, how they can help us with social connection, which is very important for mental health, and using them for teenagers and youth, which is one of the most concerning populations that needs the support. So again, please share this episode and get the link in the video description because I think it's something that, again, most people will want to understand. And she provides you with some specific guidelines on how to mindfully use essential oils, which are accessible and could potentially have a big impact on our nation's brain health. Now, before I leave you and summarize all of this, because we covered so much, I want to just give you a sneak peek of 5 of my favorite essential oils to help with soothing your mind and your body. And I'm going to go more into detail in a future article. I have a guest article on saratoga.com, and they asked me to write about essential oils for soothing the mind and the body, but with a little swing on some local experience from where I live in upstate New York. So I'll go more into details into that in a future blog, but everybody will benefit because you can still use these essential oils for any mind body support that you might need. The oils that I chose were lavender, clary sage, bergamot oil, frankincense, and citrus oils. And again, you're going to have to stay tuned to find out why. Okay, so now for the summary of using essential oils for mental health. So we talked about how they can be amazing allies in these trying times, how they simultaneously soothe our mind as they balance our body, and how they support our emotions through their modulation of our brainwave patterns, our neurochemistry, our physiology, our biochemistry. And essential oils also relieve stress in very distinct ways. We talked about how they can impact the HPA axis, shift our perception, balance our hormones, lower cortisol, and stimulate the parasympathetic branch of the vagus nerve. They are one of the most underutilized tools, I believe, for psychological disorders. And they can be an effective way to integrate into holistic and personalized approaches for better mental health in America. So I would love to know your experience with using essential oils for emotional health. And also, if you could provide feedback if you think this topic was helpful. And also to bring your attention that I have a ton of resources on essential oils and brain health on my blog, as well as some of the resources in the resource section. I even teach a course for doctors that are looking to obtain CEUs on clinical applications of essential oils and how we can use this to help our patients or your clients. So please also check that out as well. And I also have a consumer-based essential oil course as well for balancing hormones and brain health. So thank you for listening today, and I really hope that you take gentle care and that you use this information for nurturing your body, mind, and spirit. And I will be back with you real soon.